Over the past few years on Instagram, the platform has been changing a lot, which has led people to ask the question, is Instagram dead? Are feed posts dying? It's no secret that Instagram has been pushing more video content, so let's break it all down. I am going to take you through the Instagram timeline over the past few years to see how did we get where we are with Instagram. I'm also going to deep dive into insights in terms of reach and engagement to see, do videos really get that much more reach and engagement over feed posts? This might surprise you. And I'm going to share my predictions on where Instagram is heading as a content strategist and how to adapt as a small business owner. And if we've never met before, I am a social media manager turned video content strategist that helps support small businesses in shining online and creating strategic content. So let's dive right into the Instagram timeline, because this gives some really important context to the insights that I'm going to share. Back in 2017, back in the day, we had Instagram stories. Keep in mind, prior to Instagram stories, Instagram was really just feed posts with the very overbearing filters, hashtags, cringy, and a lot of businesses and brands weren't necessarily on Instagram. It was mainly for like personal use and connecting with your friends and sharing like your dog or what you were up to for the weekend. But stories really shifted that. Keep in mind, stories is now one of my favorite services on Instagram. I've done tons of videos on this channel about it. It's always the first thing I recommend for my clients, and it's what leads to the best results for my own brand. But back in 2017, there was so much resistance towards using stories because Instagram was ripping off Snapchat, which you will see has been a trend. What's really important to note when looking at stories then versus now, we're kind of looking ahead a little bit, is that stories hasn't really been perfected by any other platform but Instagram. TikTok has given it shot at stories and it kind of sucks. TikTok users are not a fan. I don't even know how to consume stories on TikTok. So I will say that even though Instagram we'll see has adopted, and not just Instagram, right? TikTok has done it, YouTube has done it, have started to adapt what is working well for other platforms. Stories is really where I think Instagram found its secret sauce in terms of video, but also having feed posts. Then we kind of jump ahead a little bit to IGTV, which is no longer with us. This year, Instagram decided to completely get rid of IGTV and essentially put all video content under Reels. So you'll even see now if you have posted a live replay or something like that, it'll also be in the Reels tabs. Everything was just merged because it was kind of confusing, but IGTV did show that Instagram was really looking to embrace video in the upcoming years. And if you happen to be on my Instagram then, I was so excited about IGTV. It's why I love video content, because it gave a whole new surface that we could tell longer form video content that wasn't just expiring stories. It was one of those platforms that if you were early to adopt IGTV, it was actually super beneficial for a lot of brands really looking to leverage video in 2019. Then we have 2020, which is really where social media consumption and landscapes changed a lot. We had Clubhouse come to the scene, which I feel like really embodied how people were wanting more connection with brands, and they wanted to just listen into conversations and content that wasn't edited or curated. And that's really where the live boom came in, where like you would be on Instagram in 2020 and literally like 20 plus people would be going live at the same time, because it was one of the only ways to have that connection and to do your yoga classes, to do coaching sessions. You were essentially able to have that in-person connection, but have it on live. Live was always a part of Instagram, but it became such a bigger part of how people were using video on the platform. And of course, while this was happening, TikTok was having its boom, which led to, at the end of the year, us having Reels, which, like, if we're being honest and not dramatic, it completely changed how we consume and create on Instagram. This was the most organic reach, growth, engagement that a lot of accounts were getting, even if you had like a few hundred followers, that we have never seen before. It wasn't like hashtags, it wasn't like any other types of growth tactics. It was quite literally unheard of. And now that brings us into 2021 to now, where Reels has kind of leveled out and if anything had a lot of dips in engagement. A video that used to get me 20, 40,000 views now gets me maybe under 10,000 views. And I know I'm not alone in this unless you're like a viral sharing Reels audios type of account. And so this is where the really interesting numbers come in to answer the question of, okay, we obviously see over the past few years, there's been more video content. Like Reels was not the start of this. This has been happening for the last few years and for a good reason. But this also raises the question of, do Reels and videos actually perform better? Do we actually have to only post that to see results on Instagram? So in terms of the average engagement rate, when we look from 2019 to now, it has decreased by 44% for feed posts, which is a lot, right? And even if I go back to my 2019 post when I had a fraction of the audience that I have now, my content performed just as well as it does now. So this definitely is something that I've experienced myself. Also, when we think of 2019, there was also a boom of like carousel graphics and saves and shares and creating feed posts from that type of perspective. So I would say feed posts went from like a high to like when Reels came around. But when we look at content that isn't Reels, carousels are consistently the piece of content that gets the best engagement. And this has always been my approach when it comes to if I'm posting a photo, if I'm posting graphics, I always opt for a carousel. And the reason why is that people can quite literally swipe through the content, they can read it, they can look at a photo more in depth, it can tell a little bit more of a story, which means that people spend more time on those feed posts, which means they're a lot more likely to save it, to share it, or to scroll all the way down and leave a comment. And even as of recently, Reels is still the top performing piece of content when it comes to reach, but it has been going up and down when carousels actually have been continuing to go up. So they're kind of meeting a little bit more in the middle. And if I had to give an early prediction on what I see on Instagram in the future is I think with all of the uproar around we want Instagram to be the way it was before, I think Instagram is like, okay, people aren't really fully onto a full video platform, so we need to kind of make it more of a playing field. And I think they're honestly trying to navigate with so many more algorithms than years before. There's a stories algorithm, there's feed, explore page, Reels. How can they give everything a fair playing field so they're not leaving photos and feed posts completely in the dust? So as we can see, Reels wasn't the start of the video boom on Instagram. It has really been happening since stories came to the app. But why video? Of course, there's the obvious of, are all these platforms just copying each other and copying what's working and trying to make it their own? But I think there's a little bit more to it. As humans, we are wired to enjoy videos. There's the visuals, text, movement, and audio all in one, which other types of content typically highlight only one or two of those elements. It's also leaned into a less perfect, less curated era of Instagram, which I personally really enjoy because not only it's more sustainable to create from, but it creates a more authentic relationship and connection with the communities we're creating online. I think we all can say we loved the influencer era of gorgeous photos that were very dreamy and quite unrealistic. And I definitely think there's a time and place to inspire and get creative with our content. I definitely see in the future influencers kind of leaning more into that of like, we loved creating this way, I want to get back to my roots. But I do think there's something to be said about the connection that comes with less perfect content. So it's all about a balance. And video tells a visual story and conveys emotion in a way that other pieces of content can. It's why we love binging content on Netflix. And it's why when I'm looking for new recipes from my favorite creators, instead of reading a caption or swiping through perfect recipe photos, I'm a lot more likely to watch the step-by-step recipe video. We know Instagram, like all social media platforms, their goal is to make money from what they're creating. So this means that Instagram isn't making decisions without looking at the insights and what people actually like consuming more with, which they have said time and time again. We're looking at the insights and people love video. But they've also expressed they haven't really liked the result of how things have turned out on the platform. They think discoverability, recommendations, and the algorithms could do a better job. And if we're being honest, Instagram has always been a really great place for nurturing communities, but it's never been a discover platform like YouTube or TikTok. But maybe that's what makes Instagram so special, is I'm very likely to find someone on YouTube or TikTok, but I'm always gonna go to Instagram to connect with them a little bit more, whether it's watching their lives there or going on their stories. And while there's a lot of theories on if photo is gonna completely go away on Instagram, but I think that Instagram has the intention, which they have expressed, that photo isn't going away. It just might look a little bit different on the platform. They've been testing 9:16 photos, so photos and reels would be looking the same, which maybe gives them a better chance of performing the same. We'll see how those tests go. And the reality is, if you love your photos, your graphics, your feed posts, post them. You cannot complain about low reach, low engagement if you're thinking you have to prioritize video. Post what feels the most authentic to you, your brand, and your strategy. Because the more you lean into the types of content you want to be posting, the better off it's going to perform. My personal recommendation, even as a video coach, is to post a mixture of all the types of services. Go live, use stories, post to the feed, and of course, leverage the power of Reels. So with all that being said, reach and engagement is changing and evolving. The platforms and surfaces on Instagram have continued to change and evolve. How should you adapt? Should you leave Instagram altogether? My answer is no, but I'm gonna recommend how I would approach the changing Instagram app. So first things first, don't leave Instagram, but I recommend diversifying where you're actually creating content. I have a podcast, YouTube channel, email list, and also TikTok. So I'm not just creating on Instagram, which has always been a philosophy of mine. You don't want to put all of your eggs in any of the baskets. And if you're just starting out with growing your brand on social media, start with one app and then grow from there, because you want to make sure you're able to sustain whatever content strategy you're creating. And when it comes to short form video in general, I think trends are out, which I have a whole video coming about soon. My other recommendation is check your attitude. I went there. Yep. I truly think that if we spend our time and energy complaining about the apps, being annoyed with them, we aren't going to be showing up in a way that's going to help us see the results we want. And it's probably why you're not seeing the results you want on Instagram if you're really frustrated with the app. That same energy could be used for creating content, connecting with your community. And I want to remind you that we use apps like Instagram for free, right? These are free platforms for us to connect with our ideal clients and customers. So remember that whenever we have the audacity to complain about whatever Instagram and Mark Zuckerberg and Adam Mosseri talk about on the apps. And most importantly, be agile when adapting with social media changes. If there's anything we know about social media or marketing, is that it's going to continue to evolve. So build a strategy that's not reliant on trends or the hottest hack, but really creating from a place that's strategic for your brand and business. So definitely check out the rest of the videos on my channel if you need more help with your video or content strategy, and I'll see you in the next video.